everyone, I am Kimberly, the 5-Minute NP. The 5-Minute NP was born out of my belief that small, incremental changes can drastically change the trajectory of your life. Our genes do not have to determine our lifespan. My goal through this podcast is to act as a roadmap that bridges the gap between knowledge and action, leading to you living your healthiest, happiest, longest life. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast.
Hello, everyone. It was an honor to talk to international best-selling author of Chris Beats Cancer, Chris Wark. At the age of 26, Chris was diagnosed with stage 3C colon cancer, and after surgery, he followed his intuition and opted out of 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy, and instead radically changed his diet and lifestyle. 17 years later, he remains cancer-free. Chris is a husband, father, health coach, speaker, author, and a patient advocate. His story has reached millions. In this episode, Chris talks about his new book, Beat Cancer Daily, which includes 365 days of inspiration, encouragement, and action steps to survive and thrive. Chris shares his Beat Cancer mindset and Beat Cancer Daily habits. He discusses overcoming fear and how forgiveness is one of the best things you can do for your health. Chris's story will inspire you, motivate you, but most of all, it will empower you. Welcome to the 5-Minute NP podcast. Hi, Chris. Thanks for being here today.
Great to be with you.
Yeah. So you're a best-selling author, health coach, patient advocate, speaker, but honestly, none of that would have been possible if you weren't first a cancer survivor. So I'm looking forward to hearing your story.
Yeah. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer when I was 26. And it was a big shock, of course. I didn't expect to have a cancer diagnosis. I thought I had an ulcer. And I was told by my doctor, we've got to get you into surgery right away and get this thing out before it spreads and kills you. And this is what most cancer patients are told. They're rushed into treatment before they understand their disease, before they understand the treatment, before they understand the short-term, long-term side effects. And so I was very much in that camp of clueless cancer patients. I had surgery on December 30th, 2003. Spoiler, didn't die. Almost 17 years ago. And when I woke up from surgery, they said it's stage 3C. Mm-hmm. We were hoping it would be stage 2, which means surgery, you go home, and they're done. Mm-hmm. But stage 3 means you're going to need chemotherapy. They told me 9 to 12 months of chemo was the next step. Mm-hmm. And that was not good news. But in the beginning, I initially just sort of accepted, like, okay, this is my life. I'm a cancer patient now. Like, I'm the, young guy with this weird, rare old people cancer. Mm-hmm. Colon cancer is mainly found in old people, but it is very quickly becoming common in young people. And so I was sort of in the first wave of young adult colon cancer patients, in a sense. And now they've just recommended, the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force has just recommended that colon cancer screening start at age 45 instead of age 50, because they're realizing, this is a problem for younger people. Colon cancer is a dietary disease. It's caused by our diet, by and large. And my generation was the first fast food generation. Before I was born in 77. And so, really the 80s is when fast food took off. Mm-hmm. McDonald's, the Happy Meal, the commercials, Burger King, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, KFC, Subway. Right. I mean, it just, those restaurant chains exploded in the 80s and became just a normal part of American life. Mm-hmm. And my first birthday was at a McDonald's, classic American kid story.
Right.
And so anyway, that is what's contributed to this skyrocketing obesity epidemic and chronic disease epidemic is our food supply has become largely processed and nutrient deficient. And we're just eating way too much meat and dairy, way too much junk food, fast food, processed food, fake food, and not enough real food, whole foods, fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, whole grains. So, but I didn't know any of this stuff. I just knew I had cancer, and that my next step was chemo. The first thing they told me in the hospital, the first meal they served me in the hospital was a sloppy Joe.
That is unbelievable, but so true. I know it's so true.
You've heard you're familiar with my story. And so,
I just think it's funny because you're so right when you say that, because that is the kind of stuff they serve in the hospital.
It's just horrible. It's like the worst food ever. And it was shocking to me, even in, December 2003, to have them cut out a third of my large intestine and then like put a, cafeteria tray on my lap with a sloppy Joe on it,
Right.
Because nobody wants a sloppy Joe. I mean, it's almost like adding insult to injury. You know what I mean? It's like, we just cut you open and you got cancer and here's the worst food we could think of.
Right.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
So that was strange to me that they'd be serving such terrible food to sick people. The other thing that happened in the hospital was the day they said I could go home, my surgeon came in, he was doing his rounds, and we were having a conversation about what was going to be what's next. And I asked him if there's any food I needed to avoid, because I was just, want to make sure I didn't eat the wrong thing and screw up the surgery.
Right.
And he said, no, just don't lift anything heavier than a beer.
Nice.
So, that was it. I mean, that was all the nutritional advice, digestive health advice, or whatever I got from my surgeon. So the wheels were turning, and I just was thinking, why is there such a big disconnect between healthcare and healthy eating, health food, healthy living? They just don't seem to care. It's like, and I had a bit of a background in healthy stuff because my mom had always been into health food. She wasn't hardcore, like she wasn't a vegetarian or a vegan or anything like that, but she liked to shop at health food stores. She was always taking supplements, and she had read tons of sort of like healthy living books over the years and amassed this big library of books on healing and nutrition and health. And I worked at a Wild Oats when I was in college, which got bought out by Whole Foods. So like I knew, about the health food world, organic food and stuff like that. But I wasn't eating that way. I was actually a junk food connoisseur. I've always been thin, thought I had a free pass, and loved barbecue, ate it. I live in Memphis, so like there's barbecue joints everywhere, and I would eat barbecue several times a week. And most of my other meals were fast food meals and junk food and stuff like that. It was just, I was a very busy person, and I was just eating on the run, just whatever I felt like was in the mood to eat, and whatever I could get quick and fast. And that was that. So I got home after surgery, and I was getting off the pain medication and sobering up. And as I did, I just thought about my life and my future. And I thought about what was to become of me. And I had this image in my mind of myself as an advanced chemo patient, because I had seen advanced late stage cancer patients, out in the world. I didn't know any personally, but I had seen, there was a guy at my church that I had seen, and there was, somebody at the mall or in a restaurant, right? And anytime you see someone that's in that late stage where they have no hair, their skin's yellow, they're emaciated, a lot of times they're wearing a mask. And of course, now everybody's wearing a mask, but before 2020, if you saw someone wearing a mask in public, you would think, oh, there's something wrong with that person, right? And of course, we know cancer patients were wearing masks because their immune systems had been destroyed. And so they're trying to protect themselves from, viruses, bacteria, any kind of pathogen that could create havoc in their body because their immune system is so weak. So anyway, I had that image of the late stage cancer patient, and I just thought, is that what I'm going to turn into? Right? Is that my future? And I was like, I don't want to become that.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that that's chemo, right? That chemo is doing this to people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had an increasing internal resistance to doing chemotherapy. Just based on that, my instincts and intuition were telling me, like, this seems really harmful.
Right.
And so my wife and I prayed about it. We're Christians, and I just said, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me, because I don't know what to do. And I just didn't have a peace about doing chemotherapy. So we prayed, and then 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man in Alaska who was a friend of my dad's. And this book was written by another guy named George Malcolmus, who had a remarkable healing story about healing his colon cancer with a radical change of diet and lifestyle. And I'm reading his story, and he was a former pastor and had seen a lot of friends and family members go through cancer treatment, suffer and die. And then he got colon cancer, and he decided, like, well, I don't want to do that because it doesn't seem to be working for anybody.
Right.
And he just happened to have a friend who was a health nut who said, man, you need to go back to the Garden of Eden, eat fruits and vegetables, raw, get a juicer, start drinking lots of carrot juice. And so that's what he did. And within a year, his tumor was gone, and his body had healed. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And it was the first time I'd ever been told or heard that cancer can be healed, that the body creates it and the body can heal it, and that cancer is not random. It's not just bad luck or genetics, that it's most cancers are caused by our diet and lifestyle and environment. Up to 90%, diet, lifestyle, and environment are the causes. And so if you can investigate and evaluate and identify the causes in your life and remove them, then you increase your odds of survival. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to do everything in my power to help my body heal. And so I got really excited. And it just took one story to give me enough hope and courage to step out and take action to change my life. I didn't have all the facts, didn't have all the details, didn't have all the studies, didn't have a degree, no medical background, no scientific background, right? I didn't have any of that.
Right.
I didn't need it. I didn't need any of those things to change my life. All I needed was to take action. So I converted to a raw food diet overnight. Went to Whole Foods, loaded up the cart with vegetables, bought a juicer. That was back when they used to sell juicers in Whole Foods. They don't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
And they used to have a fresh juice bar. Now they don't do that either. At least not my local ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm just overnight, I'm doing this, right? I'm diving in. I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I had a sense that I believed I could get well. And that's such an important part of what I call the beat cancer mindset that I talk about in both my books, is you have to believe that you can get well. Otherwise, why do anything? And if you believe you can get well, then the next step in this process is you've got to take responsibility for your life and your health. You've got to take massive action, be willing to change everything, and enjoy your life and the process, right? Embrace this new season of life, and embrace it with an attitude of as an adventure, right? Not as a punishment. And that's the two very different outlooks. So I embraced it. I was like, and the first scripture that came to me after my diagnosis was Romans 8:28, which says, we know that God works all things for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. And I chose to believe that. That's what faith is. It's choosing to believe. I exercised my faith and I said, I'm going to believe this, that God's going to work this for my good. I don't like it. I really don't like it.
Right.
I was struggling with envy and jealousy of everyone else in the world who didn't have cancer,
Right.
And feeling sorry for myself.
Right.
But at the same time, I was fighting back those thoughts and emotions with faith and just saying, you know what, God, I trust you. I believe you're going to work this for my good. So the first part was pretty easy, converting to a raw food diet, because I had the motivation to do it. To me, it was like, there's nothing worth holding on to in my life that's worth dying over, right? Cheeseburgers, not worth dying over.
Right.
Pizza and ice cream, not worth dying over.
And you were probably shocked with the things that you were drinking and eating that you never thought you would before.
Yes. And, I just was like, I decided to overdose on nutrition, right? And so when my eyes were opened to the power of nutrition to promote health and healing, to fight cancer in your body, I got excited and I wanted to just cram as much in there as I could.
Right.
And, and I also knew that like, it couldn't hurt me, right? I'm like, if there's a possible way I can hurt myself with too much carrot juice, I'm going to figure out how to do it.
Right.
And the worst thing that happened was I turned orange.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, yeah, you probably turned orange.
I turned orange. That was the worst side effect was orange. My hands and my everything, my whole body was kind of yellowish orange. Doctors and some medical people thought I was becoming jaundiced, but it was just the carrots.
Right.
So that was the way it started. And it was just with massive life change, massive action. And massive action is sort of a theme of both my books and my message too. Is like, if you want massive results in your life, you've got to take big actions. Like you can't just make little small changes and assume they're going to change your whole life. Now, there's a flip side to this. Small changes over time also will produce big results. And so it does work both ways. There's big levers that you can pull in your life, and there's small levers. And pull the big levers first, because that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck.
Right. Changing
your diet, exercising, forgiveness, and then pull the small levers, which is like, supplementation and reordering your daily routine and removing other sources of stress from your life, right? And things like that. So I I couldn't change everything overnight, but I changed some things very quickly. And the diet was like, anybody can change their diet overnight pretty much. And so that was the first thing I did. And that actually gave me the sort of the sense of accomplishment and empowered me to change more. Because once I started eating a raw food diet, and I'd been doing it about a week and I was feeling good, I realized, okay, if I can do this, what else can I do? Right. I got this dialed in, got it figured out. What else can I do to help myself? And so it unlocked something in my mind or whatever that propelled me forward to change more.
Yeah. What I love about this book, This Beat Cancer Daily, is that it's more than just being about a plant-based diet. It's about overcoming fear of the unknown, and it's feeding your mind daily on those things. Taking captive every thought. Like, I feel like our mindset and our thoughts play into our health more than we have even realized.
Yes. Huge. The book is called Beat Cancer Daily, but many, many pages in the book don't mention cancer at all. I mean, I haven't actually done a word count, but it's not just about cancer. It's not just for cancer. What the book is about is, stepping out in faith, overcoming your fears, being courageous, forgiving the people who've hurt you, practicing gratitude, cultivating joy in your life. And then there's practical practical advice and steps in there too, like eating a plant-based diet,
Right.
eating more fruits and vegetables, exercising,
Right.
spending time in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and taking every thought captive, as you mentioned earlier, is choosing positivity, right?
Right.
Choosing to think positively, because it's easy to think negatively. And in every circumstance, you always have the choice.
Mm-hmm.
You always have a choice. You can focus on the negative, or you can focus on the positive.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we get so myopic in our view of our life that we have a negative circumstance, and you think, well, there's nothing positive in this, right? This is just all negative, right? And that may be true, but guess what? You've got all this other positive stuff in your life, right? So for me, it's like, I have a wife who loves me. I have 2 beautiful daughters. I have a home to live in. I have a car, right? I have money to pay my next round of bills.
Right.
I can get out of bed and feed myself. None of that has anything to do with this other negative thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so the practice of gratitude is stepping back from a negative situation, like stepping back, looking at the big picture of your life and reminding yourself how much you have to be thankful for, how blessed we are in so many ways in life. And guess what? It's a blessing to have problems, because if you got problems, you ain't dead.
Right. You're still here.
Right. It's a blessing to have challenges and problems, because you're still here. You're still above ground. That's a good thing. And many problems in life really come to us as opportunities. And it's important to see problems as opportunities. Obstacles are there for a reason, to be overcome or to divert you onto a new path. I talk about this in the new book, that obstacles have a purpose. And it's one of the 2 things. It's either this is here for you to overcome. It's going to make you stronger and smarter, wiser, right? And or it's going to divert you onto a new path that will be better, right? The new path is going to be better than the path you were on.
Right.
And
So you're right. I feel like, I'm sorry, but I think perspective is a big part of that. But what do you feel like, when you're actually going through things, it's hard. Like when you're, waiting for a diagnosis, waiting for the biopsy results. I know I just went through that myself, 3 weeks of, rolling out cancer by test and repeat test and more tests. And I felt like, honestly, I was kind of paralyzed for 3 weeks, even though I know all of these things, be anxious for nothing, have no fear. But like, what did you actually do that made a huge impact during those times when you're so weak and vulnerable?
I did a lot of praying, and I spent a lot of time in the Word, looking for encouragement and trying to cultivate and stir up my faith. There's one of the early scriptures that really jumped out at me was Psalm 34:19, which says, "The righteous may suffer many afflictions or have many troubles, but the Lord delivers them from them all." And I just thought, that's it right there. That's my promise, right? That's a promise from God that I'm claiming for my own life, that He's going to deliver me from my troubles, from my affliction. Cancer just taught me how to find joy and happiness in the most difficult season, right? It taught me how to just go deeper in my faith and to really trust God and to give Him my worries and fears. Before that, I'm not prone to be a worrier. Some people are prone to worry, right? I'm not prone to worry, but I'm prone to be envious and jealous and competitive and resentful and bitter and things like that. So I'm prone toward those emotions that are more rooted in the past and in the present, versus like worrying about the future. But cancer all of a sudden had me worrying about the future, something I never did before.
Right.
And I had to quickly learn to give my fear to God and just say, I'm laying it down, right? I'm laying it at your feet, and I trust you. You're in control. Show me what I need to do, and show me what I need to change, right? What I can change
Right.
about me,
Right.
not just the diet, right? but like, what do I need to change in my thought life,
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I treat others,
Mm-hmm.
in the way that I am, right? And what about me needs to change?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important for everyone, is not just to pray and ask for help, right? But also to ask, show me what I need to do, what
Right.
I need to change.
Mm-hmm.
And he did, it just took a little time
Mm-hmm.
you can't change everything overnight, like I said, but it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really why I wrote this new book. I mean, my first book, Chris Beat Cancer, that tells my cancer story in great detail. And there's about a third of the book is an expose on the cancer industry and the medical pharmaceutical cancer industry. And so people can really understand what they're dealing with, and how much corruption's involved, and how flawed a lot of the studies are, and how flawed the science is and manipulated it is. But the new book is really a book of encouragement, right? That's what it is. It's 365 days, one page per day, of inspiration, encouragement, and action steps. So it's a blend of, there's some days are devotional with scripture, some days are quotes that are thought provoking, some days are challenges to make changes in the way that you're thinking or acting, and some days are about forgiveness. And so I'm just really excited about it, because it's something that I found myself doing on a daily basis anyway, interacting with folks in our community, with cancer patients and things. And I just realized, this is a daily journey. I mean, somebody can read my first book and take a bunch of notes and highlight stuff and make changes in their life, but this is a daily process, right? And every day it's easy to get distracted. It's easy to get off course, out of sync. Get your schedule gets crazy, and we can't control the past. It's over. You can't control the future, right? All you can control are your choices today.
Right.
And so from moment to moment, we have choices.
Right. You're right.
And your life is the sum total of your choices, right? There's a quote in the book that's my twist on this sort of common cliche, which is everything happens for a reason, right? But I like to finish that with, and most of the time, the reason is you.
Right.
Your choices, for the most part, got you where you are.
Right.
And your choices can get you somewhere else. They can get you to a better place or a worse place. And all your choices compound over time.
Right.
In our culture, there's this sort of obsession or popular thinking about, living for today. Right. And every pop song is just about like, all we have is tonight, baby. You know what I mean? It's all about tonight, and let's extract as much fun out of tonight as possible. And who cares about tomorrow? Right. Well, I don't think you should worry about tomorrow, but I think you should make wise decisions that set you up for future success and health and happiness tomorrow. Right. And not burn yourself out just living for today.
Right.
And, the example is, if you go out and partying and you get super drunk, well, guess what? Tomorrow's ruined. Right. You just sacrificed tomorrow to feel extra good today.
Right.
And so as our decisions add up, we're either sowing a bunch of seeds that will harvest health and prosperity and happiness and love, or we're sowing a bunch of seeds that will harvest misery, pain and suffering and misery and loneliness and isolation and debt, despair. I mean, all kinds of things, right? And you're not a victim, right? You're the only victim you are is of your own choices, for the most part. We can be victimized in an instant, but the majority of our life is up to us. And so this victimization culture is really concerning to me, because I see all these different groups of people who seem to be competing with each other to see who is the most offended and oppressed. right? Who's the most victimized, right? And everybody's trying to get more attention for how oppressed we are. No, we're more oppressed. No, us. Or it's harder for us. And you have it easier, and therefore you should feel bad about yourself because you don't have the challenges we have, right? And when I see all this stuff, people in my community don't act this way, because if you've had cancer, it resets your whole perspective on life and health and everything. And so, but as a cancer survivor and a patient advocate, I see so many of these people that are so unhappy, right? They've chosen to be so unhappy about some issue, right? And I'm just like, you have no idea how blessed you are, right? And these are people who have decided to not focus on the good things in their life, right? On all the blessings. And they've decided to focus on something they don't like about the government, about society, about economics, whatever, right? Sociological issue, race, whatever it is, right? And they've decided, I'm going to be unhappy about this, right? No matter what else good in my life, I'm going to choose to be unhappy about this thing. And that's a recipe for misery, for personal misery. And cancer patients don't have time for that stuff. They don't. They got no time for it at all. No regard for it. It just seems absurd to someone who is facing death for real. All that other stuff seems like nonsense. So no matter what's going on in your life, you have the power to choose to focus on the good things. And that is the secret to happiness, is counting your blessings and realizing, like, thanking God every day for the good things in your life. We take it for granted, like that we can get out of bed, that we can see and hear and eat, that I can go to work and earn money, that I have so much, so much. And this is not about money, right? I have so many blessings that have nothing to do with money. And that's what makes me rich. And probably the most powerful revelation that I had, and there's a quote in the book on one day entry in the book, which is that, anytime I start to feel discouraged or down on myself or depressed or frustrated or angry, things don't go your way. Stuff happens. Like people are rude or mean or let you down, or just plans go haywire, right? I get tangled up in those emotions too, but I can snap out of it really quick. And I do it with one thought, right? It's like my little secret weapon or thought. And that thought is this: right now, there's someone dying in the hospital that would give anything to trade places with you.
That's so true.
All I have to do is tell myself that, and then I just snap out of it. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, today's a great day. I don't care what's going on. Today is a great day. Like, I am thankful for today. I'm thankful for my life and health. And so that's something that anybody listening or watching can use, right? All you have to do is just stop for 1 second and remind yourself, there's somebody dying in the hospital that would love to trade places with you. They would love it. They would love to have your problems.
That's so good. Yeah, I love how empowering you are with your story, because it's not just inspiration, it's empowering that we have a choice, we have a decision, and we can make it every single day to be in control of our health. And I think that it's kind of sad sometimes that we wait for, the pandemic that brings attention to our health, or a bad diagnosis, or just worrying about a bad diagnosis, undergoing things. Suddenly you realize what the priority is. It's like all of this other stuff, you're right, it doesn't matter. What matters is like right in front of you, like, am I going to live? Is it my health? Who's around me that I love? You are so right on that perspective.
Yeah, well, the average person cares about a lot of stuff. When you have cancer, you only care about one thing. That's getting well. That's it. Beyond that, maybe your close friends and family, right? And very small things. But most of the stuff that you cared about before is totally irrelevant.
Right.
Right.
You're so
You don't
right.
care about politics. You don't care about world events. Like you don't care about sports. Like, you don't care about any of that crap.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Uh,
You're so right.
and I've really tried to maintain that sense. I mean, of what cancer taught me. I mean, of course, I care about more things than I did when I had cancer. Now that I've been past it for 17 years, like I've opened up to caring about more stuff. But generally, it's easy for me to quickly make a judgment call on the unimportant, the essential versus the non-essential.
Right.
And that's another concept that's in the new book is, really learning how to prioritize the essential things and not get tangled up and bogged down by non-essential things in your life.
Right.
And it just creates more space for peace and contentment. When we're overloaded with commitments and responsibilities and projects and people to juggle, and it just creates stress for you, and stress is a root cause of disease.
Right. You put a great quote in your book about that too, about not being in harmony, and it's related to stress, and it's so true. It makes you sick.
Stress is a root cause of most disease. This is my opinion. Because when we are stressed, whether it's work stress, relationship stress, money stress, political stress, right? Social issue stress, or the negative emotions that we're harboring, like bitterness and resentments towards people that have hurt us, or fear and worry of the future, or jealousy and envy. All of that stuff, like everything I just mentioned, is negative emotion. It's stress producing emotion. And when a lot of people are just bouncing back and forth between negative emotions, right? They're bitter and resentful towards some person. And then in the next moment, they're worried about the future. And then the next moment, they're being jealous or envious about somebody else, right? They're just in this cycle of just going from negative to negative to negative to negative. And when you live that way, you're in a state of chronic stress. And that chronic stress elevates your stress hormones, which are adrenaline and cortisol.
Right.
And those hormones they create havoc in your body over time when they stay elevated. It's not, one stressful day is fine. You'll be fine.
Right.
But when you go day after day after day in this chronic grinding stress, those hormones suppress your immune function and they promote inflammation. And when you have suppressed immunity and pro-inflammation, your body becomes a place where cancer cells can thrive. That's the environment that cancer cells and other chronic diseases manifest. Immunosuppression and chronic inflammation. Okay. So the way, what I set about to do in my own life, and what I hopefully, and there's evidence that I've helped a lot of other people do, is to address the stress issues, the disease promoting, health destroying stress in their life, because ultimately this is leading us to not only become vulnerable to disease, but then to self-medicate in ways that accelerate the disease. So, for example, when you're stressed, right? People cope with stress by eating, right? Eating is medication. Food is medication. Drugs, illegal and legal, are medications that can be easily abused. Alcohol, cigarettes, right? Cigarettes are a stress reliever. And guess what? They're the number one cause of cancer.
Right.
The number one cause. Alcoholism is destroying people's lives, their relationships, destroying their livers, their bodies, right? Being a workaholic, being a sex addict, gambling, shopaholic, running up debt, all these things that people do are forms of self-medication because they have unresolved emotional conflict. They have stress in their life that they have not addressed, right? So it's very easy to make this case that stress is leading us to disease. And granted, some diseases are caused by environmental pollution and toxins and parasites, pathogens, virus, bacteria, stuff like that. Of course. But the vast majority of chronic disease comes from our choices. And if you don't address the stress, you may not get well. So what I learned and what I talk about throughout the book and try to encourage folks to do is to identify these sources of stress that are coming from a lot of it's coming from in here.
Oh yeah.
Right. You got to win the battle in your mind first.
Right.
Then the battle in the body is much easier, but you got to win this up here. And so forgiveness is probably, in my opinion anyway, the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. The most powerful health promoting thing you can do is to forgive every person who's ever hurt you. Because if you're carrying bitterness and resentment, it's like drinking poison and hoping it hurts someone else, but it only hurts you, and it keeps hurting you more and more. And eventually that toxic bitterness, it just poisons your heart, right? You end up with a sick heart, right? Bitter, angry, hard-hearted. We all know people like this, right?
Yeah.
And that affects, this isn't just esoteric stuff, right? This is real physical manifestation in the body, right? And having a sick heart will produce a sick body, because you become immunosuppressed and inflamed and vulnerable, and you're self-medicating in all kinds of unhealthy ways, and the perfect storm is brewing. So I made a decision to forgive every person who ever hurt me by name, and it took some time. You have to sit down and think through your life, close your eyes, and go into the filing cabinet of your mind. Right. There's a filing cabinet with all the painful memories. And you got to clean it out. You got to clean it out like we do every year or two. I got to go through my filing cabinets and pull out all this stupid papers and crap that I've accumulated that I thought maybe I needed, and now I definitely don't need them anymore. And that's what we have to do. And if we don't, it just gets bigger and bigger. The problem just keeps growing. And so,
and it's not always easy. I mean, it's not an easy process. I mean, you can say it, write it down, but it's not always easy.
The biggest, it's simple, but not easy. But I want to try one of the things that my calls, I think, feel like the message that God's given me, and that I feel the most passionate about is forgiveness. And simplifying it for folks is really important to me. And I talk about it a lot in both books, but forgiveness is not a feeling. It's a choice. And I think because we don't feel like doing it, it feels hard, right? It feels hard because we want to hold on to the injury, right? We're holding on to it for justice. We are wired for justice. When we've been wronged, we feel like we deserve justice for that wrong. And so we're holding out, right, for justice. But the problems, as I said before, the longer you hold on to bitterness, the more damage it does to you. It doesn't hurt the other person at all. I mean, you can ignore them or be rude to them or whatever, but ultimately you're the one that suffers the most. And unforgiveness traps you in a prison of pain. Right? You trap yourself in it. And there's a way out. And that way out, reach around, unlock the cell door, let yourself out through forgiveness. So the way I encourage people to pray, to forgive, it's so simple. It's basically, you think of that person who hurt you or the thing they did, right, that hurt you, and you just, right, it's right there in the front of your mind, and you just acknowledge it, right? Just let it have your attention for a moment, and then you just say, God, you know what they did? And you know how I feel about it? I'm still angry. It still hurts. I'm upset, but I'm choosing to forgive them. In spite of my feelings, I'm choosing to forgive. I'm letting it go. And I'm giving it to you. They're all yours. I'm not going to carry it anymore. And I am asking you to be merciful and to bless this person who has hurt me. Asking you to bless the person that hurt me. I would prefer if you didn't. But I'm asking you anyway. right? And see, God knows your heart. Like, you're not faking it.
Right.
And that's the thing, is people think, well, I don't feel like it, I don't want to be insincere, right? Saying I forgive someone when I'm still angry. You're not, because forgiveness is not a feeling. You choose to do it despite your feelings, right? Just like so many other things we do in life, right? We choose to go to work when we don't feel like it, right? Because you need to go.
Right.
You need to go. You need to show up at work, or you lose your job.
Right.
Right. You need to do the work so you can get paid, so you can pay your bills or whatever.
Right.
Like, your feelings don't matter. You have a duty, right? To fulfill. And this is the same with forgiveness. And I hope that demystifies it a little bit for folks. It's like, you make the decision, you give it to God, you ask him to bless him. And if you pray this way, he will heal your heart. You will feel the weight lifted off of you. God will heal your heart. You will start to see that person in a new way. And that's the way that God sees them.
Yeah.
Right? With a heart of love. And because he loves them just as much as he loves you. He doesn't love their sin. He doesn't love what they did. Right? But he does love them.
Yeah.
And so the next part of this is, if the feeling ever starts to creep back in, right, those resentments or whatever, you just have to catch it right in the moment and say, you know what? I forgave them. God, I forgave them. I'm sticking with it.
Right.
Forgiveness is like a healthy diet. It only works if you stick with it.
Right.
Got to stay with it. It's a decision for life.
Right.
So
And
it's a
softens
life.
you. Yeah. Huh? It softens you. Like it does. It changes you.
Yes, it does change you.
Yes.
It heals your heart.
Yes.
It heals your heart. It changes you, and it does soften you up. And you realize, hey, Jesus said, if you don't forgive on earth, your heavenly Father's not going to forgive you.
Right.
That's pretty scary stuff. That's serious stuff. So, and there's no agenda behind that, right? It's like, oh, what's he trying to do with that message? He's just trying to get you to forgive, right? That's it. Forgive your enemies.
Right.
And he did it from the cross. Right? I mean, Jesus on the cross, suffering immeasurable pain, being, while spectators, like, were eating popcorn, you know what I mean?
Right.
Enjoying his suffering.
Right.
And yet he chose to forgive them publicly in the moment, and said, Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. Right? They know not what they do.
Right.
And that was his demonstration to us. And I just think about that, and I think, my gosh, if Jesus can forgive his enemies from the cross while he's dying, I can forgive anybody.
Right.
Like, no one has done anything remotely close to that to me.
Right.
Not even close.
Right.
And and not to anyone listening or watching, because you'd be dead.
Right.
So
yeah, it's so powerful.
It is. And again, this is, forgiveness really was the biggest theme of Jesus's entire ministry, right? Yeah. It's forgiveness, God forgiving us and welcoming us back into his family, right? To restoring a relationship with God through forgiveness. That was Jesus's ministry, and for us to forgive each other. And so it's huge. I just can't emphasize enough the healing power of forgiveness, and it's free. Right. It costs you nothing. Right. Just takes a little time to sit down and work through these people in your life who've hurt you. That's all it costs. Right. And the reward is immense. And so, I've talked to a lot of cancer patients, tons. I've lost count, of course. It's been 10 years doing this publicly. Right. And I am confident that you can do everything under the sun. You can do the super healthy diet and the therapies and the supplements and all this kind of these wonderful beneficial things. But if you don't forgive, you probably won't get well. Right. That's how important it is.
Yeah, you're so right. I agree. Like, you just get so consumed, and even in this current environment, it's just like, I feel like everybody is so, it's just like you say, people are fearful, they're afraid, but they're lashing out at others. They're mean. It's like, wow, if you just step back, like you say, and just, first of all, be kind to others, is a good thing. Be grateful for your life. It just totally changes your life, changes your perspective when you do realize that there's so many bigger things.
That's right. And, I think it would be great. And I really hope to be able to reach more people with this message, obviously, but also just the message of gratitude about just take a step back and realize how good we have and how blessed we are, even just to live in a free country, right? To have access to unlimited food and resources and clean water. And we're so spoiled. My gosh, we're so spoiled. And I don't know what has changed. I'm 43, which sounds like an old guy to a lot of young people out there that are so mad about everything. Right. I don't know what has changed in the world or how they were brought up or whatever, but just this idea of being triggered. You can live your life in such a way that things don't trigger you, right? Like being triggered, it's like what I see is people use it as sort of as an excuse, as if they are not in control, right? They're a victim of someone else, right? Someone triggered me, right? They triggered me with their microaggressions,
right?
And I hear that kind of stuff, or I read that kind of stuff, and I'm like, well, first of all, no one triggered you. Your response was your choice.
Right.
Always. You chose to be offended. People are mean to me on the internet, way meaner to me than all these people I see complaining about mean stuff, right? People are directly mean to me.
Really?
And I've said some horrible things about me. And I choose to not be offended, right? I could be super triggered because they're directing it at me personally. Right? There's all these people running around getting triggered by something that they think is offensive to some other person, right? That's so offensive to the name a people group, right? That they aren't even a part of, but they're mad because they think you're offending somebody else. It's kind of a crazy, irrational way to go through life and to exist. And so we have the choice to be offended or not in any moment. And so I choose to not be offended when people are mean to me. I hear it, and maybe it stings and maybe it hurts a little, but I forgive quickly and I don't retaliate and I give them to God. And I say, God bless them. I don't know what's going on with this person. They're angry at a lot more than just me. Yeah. And I'm going to let it go. I'm just letting it go. Yeah. But we don't have to be triggered. Let's not be. How about that?
Right. Let's not be. I totally agree. I feel the same way. It's like people at your job, people, I've experienced that. They don't want to see you succeed. And in turn, they, say ignorant things about you that's not even true. But really, it's like, you know what? They are unhappy people. Something is happening in their life that's making them this way.
Yeah. And I think your response can short circuit the blessing in your life. If you lash out, if you retaliate, if you respond, if you become triggered, you short circuit God's ability to come in and intervene on your behalf, right? And it's a much better approach to step back and say, you know what, God, you can deal with this, right? I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to fight back. I'm not going to defend myself.
Right.
I'll let you handle it, right? I'm just going to stay cool and calm, and I'll just trust you to resolve this, because he makes a way for us, right? He will make a way for you. He will take you through the wilderness to the promised land. He didn't take the Israelites into the wilderness to be in the wilderness,
right?
But they had to go through it to get to the promised land. They had to learn to trust him, and it took them a long time to learn to trust him because they were stubborn. Right. And they grumbled and complained. Their response was wrong, right? They responded in the worst possible way. And it completely eliminated the blessing for the first generation of Israelites. They didn't even get to see the promised land because their attitude was so bad. And so we have to be careful, I think, when we enter into difficult circumstances, is to not let that bad attitude ruin
Right.
The blessing, right? It's like the thing I said earlier in our interview.
Yeah.
You got to step back and say, you know what, God, I'm going to trust that you're going to work this for my good.
Right.
I'm going to approach this difficulty from a position of faith that there's a blessing coming, good things coming. When people wrong you, they set you up for blessing.
Right.
Just like Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery, set him up for blessing. He became the second in command over all of Egypt.
Right.
He would never have gotten there had they not betrayed him and done the worst possible thing imaginable to him.
Right.
Right. And so God is so wonderful and loving and faithful. I mean, he takes those bad things and turns them into good things in our life.
Right.
When people intend evil for you, he will turn it for good. And this all ties into this victim's mentality and this being triggered and looking to identify as, oppressed and outraged, right? You're just setting yourself up for more misery. It doesn't matter what you think needs to be accomplished in the world. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Like every single wrong in the world could be corrected and you'll still be miserable.
Right. Exactly.
You will still be unhappy.
Right.
Because it's about you. Like happiness comes from within. The funny thing, the thing that just makes me so, I think is absurd is this idea of microaggressions. It's like microaggressions. This is your problem is they're so small. You need a microscope, right? To see the aggressions that are happening, you perceive are happening in your workplace or your life. Microaggressions, like it's like, come
You're
on.
really working hard for this.
Come on. Yeah. It's like, take a step back and look at the hardship and suffering that other real people in the world have, right? Yeah. And let's stop talking about microaggressions.
Right. I think it's hard though, because I think people are I think that's just kind of society, they're kind of consumed, they're kind of self-centered. And I think, maybe taking more focus off of ourselves and helping others and really paying attention to what others are going through and maybe look to learn from each other more than being offended by each other. It's like, hey, maybe these people have something to know that you can learn from. And maybe, it's just so difficult nowadays.
Yeah. And, look, there's unhappy people out there and they're rude and mean and they're short and they're, whatever.
Right.
Not short in stature, but you know what I'm saying? Short with you.
Right.
And why not just acknowledge that, okay, this is a mean person. They're mean.
Right.
They're mean to me. They're passive aggressive.
Right.
They're rude. They're clearly, they don't like me.
Right.
Right. But I'm okay.
I would never tell you to your face. I mean,
yeah.
I think keyboard warriors.
Yeah. This person doesn't like me. And, but it's okay. I just have to be okay with it. Like, I'm not going to let that steal my joy.
Right. But Chris, I think that comes from you having a higher purpose. You have a purpose for your life. You're living by your values. You know what's important. And which kind of brings me back to your book in the beginning of being diagnosed with cancer. You say, what is your why? Like, do you want to live and why do you want to live? And I think it's identifying your purpose. Why do you even want to get up? What are you doing here? And I think that gives people, by living by having a purpose and living by your values, it builds confidence in you. And I think it changes you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to go through life without a purpose. And sometimes we chase after things that we think are a purpose in life and then kind of figure out, it really isn't. Right. I don't have any joy or satisfaction in that. Right. But for me, the blessing of cancer, one of the many blessings of going through it was, it helped give me clarity on what was important in life, what my purpose is, and how I can best serve people. And I found that I get the greatest joy and fulfillment and satisfaction, and I have unlimited energy to do what I do, because it is when you're sort of in alignment with your purpose,
Mm-hmm.
you just have energy for it. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's the greatest, coolest thing.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to do something that's just really not what you should be doing, it's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's a fight, and it's hard, and it's exhausting, and there's no
Mm-hmm.
fulfillment in it.
Right.
And it's really tough. And that's, that's why you find people, just committing suicide, taking their own life, because they're,
Right.
they're in a place where they haven't figured out what their purpose in life is. And they feel like their life has no purpose, right?
Right.
They're
Right.
wrong. They're
Mm-hmm.
wrong about that.
Mm-hmm.
They just, for whatever reason, right, maybe chased after the wrong things and spent too much time and energy pursuing a purpose that, really wasn't what they were there for. I don't know. Right.
Right. Right.
But I have seen that example for
Mm-hmm.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you don't have to go through cancer, to find your purpose in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're,
Mm-hmm.
and I can break it down, I think, pretty simply. If your purpose is serving others,
Mm-hmm.
you will get so much joy and fulfillment from that.
Mm-hmm.
And you can serve others in so many ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? Either as a profession or as a extracurricular activity, right? But serving others brings you joy, right? It's the whole, it's better to give than receive. And it's not just about giving a present, it's giving your time and love and energy, right, to other people.
Right.
And so even if your profession is not really oriented towards service,
Mm-hmm.
you can still find ways to serve and feed your soul that way.
Mm-hmm.
And be the hands and feet of God,
Mm-hmm.
right, in the earth. And so, yeah, I mean, these are things that I need to work on. We all need to work on. It's just
Mm-hmm.
being more loving and serving people more. And
Mm-hmm.
I like to think that, I'm getting better as I age, more mature,
Right.
and, more patient, and,
Right.
accumulating wisdom that,
Mm-hmm.
obviously I just tried to cram it all into a book,
Right.
into
Well,
Beat Cancer Daily.
it's great. And, you give great advice. I know we haven't really talked much about the big changes that you did make to end up, being here as long as you have been. But I think what's important in the beginning is you kind of talk about, and I think this is important, not only are you making choices in your life, overhaul your diet, let's go, fruits and vegetables are good for you, and the exercise is good for you. But when it comes to receiving that cancer diagnosis, I think what was important that you mentioned is you have a choice in your provider and who you seek care with. And I think people, they kind of don't realize that. And they kind of just go through the traditional therapy, they go through the things, and they really have no idea that there's alternative treatments and people out there that you can establish a relationship that ultimately wants the best for you.
Yeah. I mean, I use this analogy of a painter. It's like if you need to get your house painted, and I came to you and I said, here's your painter,
Mm-hmm.
this guy.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, well, maybe you don't like him. Maybe he's rude. Maybe he doesn't do a very good job, right? Like, you don't even know what you're getting.
Right.
If someone just told you, here, this is gonna be the painter for your house,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and that's the way a lot of us, treat doctors, and especially in the cancer world, oncology.
Mm-hmm.
We're just assigned some doctor, right? Like, you're referred to some doctor by some other doctor, and then you just, okay, this must be the doctor for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, like, you would never have work done on your house, or at least you shouldn't. The rule of thumb is, like, you should at least get 3 bids,
Right.
3 different prices. I mean, look, my mom just had her furnace replaced. One bid was $6,300. Another bid was $5,000, and another bid was $3,300. And the $3,300 bid was actually a guy that I know very well that's done a bunch of work for me and did my own furnace. So I knew he was good.
Right.
Right? I mean, that was half price.
Yeah.
Well, in the cancer world, it's not necessarily about saving money, but it's about saving your life.
Right.
And so it's very important to get 3 opinions, or get 5 or 6 or 7 opinions.
Right. Right.
Like, keep searching for the right doctor that will support you, that understands exactly what you want to do, that isn't going to coerce you or pressure you, or, you're not going to have some combative relationship with where they think they're your boss. Right. And if you don't do exactly what they say, then there's tension like that. That's so unhealthy.
Right.
And you just may have to meet some different doctors, right? You got to go on some interviews and you're interviewing them.
Right.
That's the deal. They work for you. Don't forget it.
Right.
They work for you. And so you need, you should never settle unless you live in a communist socialist country where you got one doctor choice and that's all there's nothing else, right? If you have the freedom of choice in a free country, then you take your time and find the perfect practitioner. Perfect may be an exaggeration. Nobody's perfect, but find a doctor and practitioner that is a good fit for you, that just lines up exactly with your goals and your beliefs. Hopefully one that understands the power of nutrition and holistic health, that understands faith. It's a person of faith that loves Jesus. You're a Christian, especially. I think that's pretty important. That's what I had to do. I fortunately, it was the second one I talked to. The first doctor I saw, oncologist, was rude to my wife and I, and he was intimidating. And I talk about it in the first book. I mean, it just went really badly. And we never went back to see him. But I found an integrative oncologist who was just an incredible gift in my life. And he supported me, and he was kind and gracious and encouraging, and just a wonderful man. And so that's the experience I think every patient should have with their doctor.
Right. And when you're a patient yourself, I mean, even me as a practitioner, I mean, I went through some health things, in my last year of school, and it was like, I was shocked at the lack of empathy among providers. I was like, I feel sorry for patients. I think it's sad sometimes you have to go through things yourself to develop some empathy, but you realize it's like, wow. I mean, it's made me a better provider. It's like, you have to remember what you went through and what it's like,
I know doctors have to deal with so many complex emotions, right? So much emotion, especially when they're in cancer or in a hospital setting, and they're dealing with bad news and people dying and all this kind of stuff. And it tends to kind of harden them up. And it's sort of I think a lot of it's human nature just to sort of build up a wall of, emotionless or non-empathetic thinking.
Right.
In order just to cope with all the, extreme emotion of sickness and disease and death. And so like, I get it, but not all doctors are that way.
Yeah.
And so I think it's sort of funny thing to talk about, but there's the same percentage of bad doctors as there are bad plumbers. The same percentage. I don't know what the number is, but there's the same percentage, right? In every profession, you've got bad apples, people that just, they are not good at their job.
Right.
They're lazy. They're arrogant. They're rude. They really don't care about you. They're greedy, right? Whatever. Like you got the same percentage spread across all professions evenly, in my opinion.
Right.
And although there might be a much higher percentage, like in the drug dealing profession or whatever, but generally speaking, going to med school doesn't make you a nice person.
Right.
Doesn't make you kind or moral or loving or nice. It doesn't make you any of those things. It just makes you very, very smart and educated in, medicine, right? Surgery, chemo, radiation, prescription drugs, things like that, the human anatomy, but it doesn't improve your character as a person. And so some people go through med school, and they're just a much more smarter, educated, jerk.
Right.
They went in a jerk, they came out a jerk. Right. And so it's just important that we don't have any misconceptions about doctors as being, like better people or more moral or ethical or anything. They're just like everybody else. And you got to find the good one.
Right.
to work with.
Right.
That's
Right.
the deal. Got to find a good one. There's great ones out there, loving, kind, generous, and there's really lousy ones too.
Right. Yeah, you're so right about that. So a friend that is a doctor, I wanted to ask you this. She just said to me, we just were talking about this the other day. Once you have cancer, it robs you of your peace the rest of your life. You're going to worry it's going to come back. When is it going to come back? Is it going to be all over? So what do you say to that? Like, how do you maintain peace with the unknown, like knowing it may come back or worrying it may come back?
I do disagree with that statement. It can rob you of your peace. And in the beginning, when it's fresh and really scary, that's more difficult. But as time passes, right, those worries and fears just naturally subside. But I mean, that's going to happen, eventually. The problem is with conventional patients, right? Conventional treatments rarely cure disease. And so, when you're on that train, then the worry of it coming back is more legitimate. I mean, it's just kind of more common that you're going to get a recurrence because conventional cancer treatments rarely cure the disease. They just knock it back, right? They cut a tumor off. Well, that's fine, right? But the tumor wasn't the problem. It was a symptom of a larger problem.
Right.
The larger problem chiefly being your immune system is not working as it should. It's not identifying and eliminating cancer cells as it should.
Right.
So cutting a tumor off doesn't fix your immune system. It doesn't fix nutritional deficiencies. It doesn't improve detoxification. It doesn't reduce your stress. It doesn't do any of those things. Right. And same thing with chemo, right? You can poison a tumor and shrink it. It doesn't fix any of the other problems, and chemotherapy destroys your immune system. So it's actually causes more problems in the body, right? Brain damage, liver damage, lung damage, digestive system damage, peripheral neuropathy, wipes out your white blood cells and your red blood cells. I mean, it's head to toe damage that now you have to recover. Every system, every organ in your body has to recover from the injury of chemo. And your body's now got to also, your immune system not only has to recover from the damage of chemo, but it also has to try to identify and eliminate rogue cancer cells, cancer stem cells that chemotherapy didn't kill. So, I mean, it really, and I talk about this in great detail in my first book, but it really puts cancer patients in an extremely vulnerable position. And I don't tell people not to do chemo, but I think the patient has to really spend time educating themselves on the risks and benefits to make the best decision for them, depending on their type of cancer and stage and the type of chemo, et cetera. So that's just a little tip of the iceberg kind of overview there. But but the question that you brought up about, the robbing you of your peace, I just had to constantly give my worries and fears to God. Right? Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Today has enough trouble of its own. And so I had to catch myself when the fear would creep in and just say, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. And I would turn on some worship music and worship and pray and just let the Holy Spirit minister to me and stir myself up and encourage myself and stir up my faith, because the fear is real. I mean, it can be crippling, paralyzing fear. But there is a way to respond to it. And that I think that is the best way. It was the most helpful for me anyway. And Jesus is the Prince of Peace. He is the Prince of Peace. And so he gives us the peace that surpasses all understanding, right? It's like, having peace in your heart and being at peace when you're in the middle of a storm. And you can have that in the middle of the cancer storm. You can have peace and trusting that God is going to make a way for you. And that, so that's the way I approached it. And obviously it's the way I encourage people to approach it, but trust God, but also take action, right? Do everything in your power to help yourself too. And then you've got, then what you have is you have faith and works together. And James says faith without works is dead. What is works? Works is action. Right. So you have faith that God is going to provide for you and heal you and deliver you. And you're taking action to rebuild your temple, to change your life, right? To forgive, all these things. I mean, there's a moment in the New Testament where Jesus is talking about forgiveness. Well, it's funny. He's talking about if you ask for anything in faith, it will be done. So if you say to this mountain, be cast into the sea, it will be cast into the sea. But pray and ask, believing that you'll receive what you've asked for. And people love that verse, right? That's bold, like faith stuff. But a lot of times you hear them stop right there, because the very next thing he says is, and if you're holding, grudges, or I'm paraphrasing here, but if you have a problem with someone, forgive them. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So like unforgiveness can absolutely be a barrier to getting your prayers answered.
Right.
So again, coming back to that forgiveness thing. Yeah. Hello,
it's huge.
It's huge. Just don't delay any longer. Yeah. Unlock the prison, let yourself out, forgive everyone as fast as you can. Just go through that Rolodex, go through the filing cabinet, right? Just pull it all out like crazy. Forgive. Just clean house.
That's good. Well, what are your most important Beat Cancer daily habits? I know you give some great ones in the book, and you give some great mindset of the people that prevent reoccurrence from cancer. I think you list 10 things that are just amazing that these people have in common.
Well, you're actually referencing two different pages.
I know. I realize okay, this is really good and this is really good.
Yeah. Well, obviously almost everything we've talked about,
right,
is covered in the book in different pages and sections and writings and thoughts, the forgiveness and gratitude and faith. But there is a page that I talk about the Beat Cancer mindset. And basically, I said earlier, you got to win the battle up here. Right. You got to win the battle in your mind. And so what I've seen in my own life and in every person I know who's healed cancer holistically against the odds is they have what I call the Beat Cancer mindset. And it has several components. Number one is they believe they can get well. That's where it starts. You have to believe you can get well. They accept responsibility for their situation. They're willing to change everything. They take massive action, right? So they say, okay, this may be my fault. I'm going to change everything in my life. And then they start changing, right? They take the action to change. They change their diet. They start exercising. They forgive. They clean the toxic junk out of their house, right? They step back and say, what in my life is producing stress, right? What in my life is negative and toxic? It needs to go. And they also decide to enjoy their life and enjoy the process. And I don't know if I said this earlier or in another interview, I can't remember, but they look at it as an adventure, right? They look at this new season as an adventure, not as punishment. And those are the recurring, sort of mental facets of beating cancer against the odds. And again, I call it the Beat Cancer mindset. But the other thing that you kind of referenced is my friend Dr. Kelly Turner wrote a book called Radical Remission and then a follow-up called Radical Hope. And she studied radical remission survivors. I am in that category. And she identified 10 common factors that they had in common. And the surprising thing in her research was that only 3 of those 10 factors were physical. Diet, exercise, and supplements, right? Those are the 3 physical things that cancer patients all took charge of, took control of, and made big changes, right? The other 7 factors were all mental, emotional, spiritual, and social, right? Just, it was all that sort of non-tangible stuff. And just based on that alone, you could make the case that, hey, 70% of healing is not the physical stuff, right? If all you're doing is the physical stuff, it may not be enough.
Right.
Right. You got to address what's in here. And so I love Kelly. She's just an incredibly brilliant researcher and influential person in the cancer world. And so anyway, yeah,
that's all good.
Those are the characteristics.
Yeah. Chris, your website is incredible. I spent so much time on there. Tell people about your website and where to find you. And there's just so many good things on there. Resources, you offer programs, you really do offer a lot for people that are trying to prevent cancer in disease and going through cancer.
Yep, chrisbeatcancer.com. Started off as a blog, me sharing my story and what I'd learned in 2010, and then started making videos. And then I started interviewing other people who had healed cancer against the odds. And then I started interviewing doctors and experts in nutrition and holistic health. And so now there's hundreds of articles and interviews and wonderful content on the site. It's all free. And I've interviewed, people who've healed diabetes and lupus and MS, chronic diseases besides cancer. And, but yeah, if you go to Chris Beat Cancer and you type in the search bar, you can type in breast cancer or colon cancer or lots of different topics, and information will come up that will be very helpful and encouraging to you. And yeah, I do have a course called Square One, which is a 10-part video course that really takes somebody through the nitty-gritty details of changing their life, and especially if they have cancer. It was really designed for cancer patients to show them step by step how to change their life and do the most potent, powerful anti-cancer things, right, that they can do at home, because healing happens at home. You can do treatments and therapies and chemo, radiation, surgery. You can do all that stuff, but healing happens at home. So what you're doing at home can make all the difference between survival and death. And so that course, the Square One program, that was my way of sort of creating something and teaching folks how to do what myself and many other people did. It's all the common threads are in there. And from diet to supplements to exercise to rest to detoxification, testing and monitoring, all that stuff. Mindset, it's all in there. But yeah, I'm on social media, of course, Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all that. Pretty easy to find.
Yeah. So what would you say you're impacting the world with your work? What is the thing you want to leave the world? How are you going to be remembered?
Well, I'm definitely making my mark, I guess. And I hope that I'm remembered as someone who just gave a ton of inspiration and encouragement and practical information that people could use to change their life. I mean, that really is what I'm doing. That's what I'm trying to do every day, is be encouraging and inspiring, and also empowering to anyone who wants to change.
That's awesome.
Our choices matter. You can make choices that lead you toward health or disease. And with information, right, you can make better choices. And so we have to keep learning and reading and researching and growing. And the good thing is that truth is simple, and truth is self-evident. You know it when you hear it. It's easy to be deceived, and lies are complicated, but truth is simple. And so in everything I do, I try to gravitate towards simplicity, because I think the last thing we need is more complication and confusion in life. Like, we got to get back to living in harmony with nature, simple, low stress, peaceful lives that are full of joy and gratitude and contentment, and promote health and healing.
Right. I know so much of it. You're right. We bring on ourselves. You're so right. I love how
you're different than what the medical field is, in the sense of, just because you have cancer, you're not a cancer victim. This didn't just happen to you. Like you can, make choices that will keep you alive, that will empower you. You're so right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for talking. I mean, we've learned so much from you. Your book is awesome. And yeah, in your book, you definitely go through, where we didn't talk about, like the top anti-cancer foods and just different specific things that you can actually take action on.
They're in the book.
Yeah. Thanks for your time. Nice meeting you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Kimberly. It's been really fun.